Yeah, I don't care.
Do we have to? We're the men who chase geese.
No, we are men who chase geese. And this is going to be the Malevolence arc, which is which is 3 episodes from season. We're gonna try to do all the episodes for CW, Clone Wars, and then we're gonna move on to Ezra and the and Rebels. So we did Ambush, which is the pilot last week, and now we're gonna do Rising Malevolence, Shadow of Malevolence, and Destroy the Malevolence.
A whole lot of malevolence.
Yeah, a lot of malevolence. It says one arc. So what we're gonna do is when we do arcs, we're gonna do is one show because I think it's idiotically stupid to do.
And definitely not redundant to say idiotically stupid.
We don't do synopsises at all, or synopsi. We don't do those because I think they're dumb because you can go anywhere and just read it. Okay, I don't want to say that he went here and then he went there and then she went there and then he did that. Who cares? Okay, so the Malevolence arc is basically those 3 episodes and the Sink of the Bismarck story. So if you go back to World War II, the Germans had this ship called the Bismarck, and it's this incredibly powerful battleship with large guns, 14-inch guns. It had big guns for its time, for its size, and it played havoc and could potentially play tremendous havoc with the British supply lines. So it became a big story and a big problem. Eventually, they sank it. But when you see the Malevolence, which is the name of the battleship, it's clearly doing the same thing. It's this big battleship which goes through their shipping lanes and just destroys a lot of their ships. Already had an attack by the Malevolence ship, and it's already done damage to the Republic and to their shipping, and they've already potentially lost one of their Jedi Knights, Jedi Masters, Plo Koon. Go to this meeting, and they're all talking about it in very passive terms. These ships will be lost, so they just said no. They sent nobody out to get these men who were just hanging around space. And you see Ahsoka. She speaks up and says, "You can't do that. You've got to find these people. You're a Padawan. You have the right to speak. The order, the system we have set up here is very bureaucratic and rational, and you're not part of that." So she gets kind of bitch slapped for that, and they leave, and she learns her first lesson from Anakin. They get in their ship, and Anakin says, "Well, we're going to redeploy the fleet, but I'm going to go out and scout ahead." He's lying. He does what he always does. He breaks the rules because he feels he's right. Usually he is, by the way. So they're looking for survivors. And he tells her, "Listen, you have to go around the council, but you have to do it in a certain way." So he teaches her from the beginning. 1, the council is the problem that you have to get around. And he teaches her to do that from the start. And it was kind of funny because it's like, the bureaucracy, that the system that we're using is an issue, so let's avoid it. So when you get to the movies by movie 3, you kind of see this progression about why Ahsoka and a lot of them thought the council was just wrong, nuts, and bad.
Everything you've said for the first episode of the part, Plo gets destroyed, or his ship gets annihilated by this sort of electromagnetic pulse, and then they fire on the cannon. So the big weapon that they have is this electromagnetic pulse that suddenly shuts down every shield. But Ahsoka is obviously the one who's like, "No, we gotta go search for Plo. I like Plo. Plo is a cool guy. We're gonna go search for him." And she says that publicly, and even Anakin is surprised that she said that because, of course, for someone like himself, he's used to being like, "Okay, Council, we're gonna do your way," and then he does it his way, and then he gets scolded. But he was surprised that Ahsoka did it because she was up till that point, she had always agreed with the Council. Then they go out, and the clone troopers that Plo is stuck with are very low self-esteem. They're absolutely debauched. They have no resources whatsoever to them, and they realize that if they keep moving like this, they're just going to end up dead. But Plo is the one that's convincing them to be like, "Hey, no, you matter. There's people out there for him," which I find funny because if it wasn't for
him, they wouldn't have searched for him. They were only searching because he's a Jedi. If the Jedi had not been there, they wouldn't have searched.
At the end of that part of this arc, they escape the EMP by just outrunning it, and then they either like go over it or hyperdrive, and the blast keeps going, which made me really concerned that there's just a giant electromagnetic pulse just going into space forever, and it doesn't stop.
Well, eventually it should dissipate. But
yeah,
but
I mean, I'm no galactic scientist. It should have dissipated by like.
Well, one other thing when they're at the council meeting is that Yoda, the genius that he is, says, "Oh, twice the trouble they've become because they're both the same way." When he realizes that they're both out there looking for survivors, and because she is, again, they're trying to show that she is like a sponge. She's slowly picking up all his behaviors and thoughts, and she's acting on them in the manner that Anakin would agree with, progression over time. You see Anakin call the pilots by the name Matchstick, and when Plo Koon in that same he was there, he calls that person Pilot. He cares about his men, and he's personally attached to his men, and over time that matters. And the Jedi are aloof and a little bit off. They don't have that attachment. They're not supposed to. But also, you're asking men to die, you should at least know their name. Eisenhower would go out all the time to try to learn the names of the soldiers he was sending to die. Because it mattered. You should. They're going to die for you. You should at least know who the fuck they are. So, and that's also later on important because think about it. If you're trying to build an empire, which they do later on, who is the military love? Who do the men love in the military? I'll tell you who they loved. They loved Anakin. And then Ahsoka says he does lead by example. In other words, he is not like the bureaucrats back in Coruscant. He is up front. He is right there in the thick of things.
The sequence, they basically is a whole waste of time because the whole thing is just the aerial battle around the area, and Anakin basically is wasting clone troopers. And Ahsoka's like calling him back. She's like, "You gotta be patient. You can't risk them. I know you can do it with your excellent Jedi reflexes, but all these men are going to die." And this is the first example of him being like, "Hey, I'm actually expending these men, and I shouldn't be because their lives matter. And even though I can do it myself and be selfish about it, I would be killing hundreds of others." So he doesn't do that, which is pretty impressive because he actually listens to Ahsoka, which he wouldn't do with anyone else.
No, he does. Generally, he only listens. You find Obi-Wan and him, and that's just about it. That's what he does because he's attached to them, not necessarily attached as much to the council. And over time, he gets less attached. You do see Luminara. Luminara, she has that dark clothing she wears with the ruffle in the back and all that. She's a bitch. I can't stand Luminara. This sounds like another bold strategy by Skywalker, I presume. She says it with just that air of I'm an ass, and because she's never likes him, because she's one of the people who like the bureaucracy, who like the system the way it is, and she doesn't like anybody, including Anakin, who upsets it, even though a good chunk of the time he's right. He's not wrong, and if his methods were wrong, guess what? You wouldn't use him. You use him because he's right. The artwork I found was really good in this episode. You can see it when they had the Nebray, what's it called, the Nebray Mantis. Really nice artwork. And the battle scene in the second episode of this arc, the shadow of the Malevolence. That when you had the fighters coming in, and all of it is really well done. Again, they have a maximum budget, so they can do what they want. But it is really beautiful to see. And the hospital base. You hear one of the people say, he's a very when she talks to Anakin, he's very concerned about his men, and you can see it in his face, and you see his attachment he has to his men, and he goes back to see them, and she says he's a very curious Jedi, and because most of the Jedi they're not attached, they really don't care. They pretend they care, they say they care, but again, you're sending men to die, you don't know their name. I just think you don't really care. They're just numbers to you. That's why he's popular. And they're trying to show you through this whole thing, this arc especially, why he's a great general. You see it, why he's a great leader. You see all that stuff. And you see the effects he has on Ahsoka. You're seeing all these things. So he noticed it. He noticed it too. Padme's ass, for some reason in the show, it pops. You can see it, all right? I mean, you really see it. And throughout the whole series, for reasons which I don't understand, it's very noticeable. Now, it's fine with me. I think it's great. But the point is that it's there. They don't do it with any other character.
Kids show.
But they do it with her, and you can see it. It's a nice ass. I'm not saying it's not. So there we go. Anything else you'd like to add, my friend?
So the third part of the saga takes place within Grievous's ship.
Yep.
And what they do in order for Grievous to stay alive until the hyperdrive activates is the Chancellor himself tells Padme, hey, we're going to send you on a detour this way to the planet. And she's like, okay. And she takes the detour, and so all of a sudden she's in Grievous's ship. So this is the first example of the show being like, the Chancellor has intentionally sacrificed someone and then is blaming it on like bad information, which that whole segue. And then of course Anakin has to sacrifice everything he's done for this one senator, and he goes in and he rescues her and he have this great railway chase. But the one thing is the whole ship is destroyed, or most of the ship is destroyed. You can clearly see external damage and internal damage, but the railway system, which is a single metal rail, is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So that was the plot hole for me, but they have to do that. C-3PO shows up. He's always a character, gotta love him. Anakin doesn't show much regard for him, but he does realize the practicality of the droid, and him being there with Padme is important later on. Padme and rescues her with the Force, and he pulls her over to the train that's going to survive. And then Obi-Wan is in charge of pulling C-3PO, and he completely fucks it up and smacks right into a train. So that's the comical part of season 1. The part that happens every episode of this arc is Grievous escapes in some manner. So he escapes in every single episode, which I didn't appreciate too much. They hyperdrive into the moon.
At the end.
They hyperdrive into a moon, and I'm no galactic scientist, but if you put a certain mass inside a core of a planet or a giant spherical object, that's going to cause massive ruptures, and so that object probably should have either exploded or tectonic shifts would have caused whatever planet it was orbiting to completely lose the tide. So that planet is fucked, but at least they don't have the hyperdrive EMP weapon.
There is a nice fight scene, again, first of many, between Obi-Wan and Grievous. Grievous and Obi-Wan have a thing, and it goes through the whole series. They fight all the time. They're like the nemesis, they're each other's nemesis all the time. It's great. He has his own escape thing, which is the classic Jedi thing. He's surrounded at one point. Jedi constantly do it. He's surrounded by all these droids, and he can just, but he can just jump up, like he can just shoot right up in the air, and he escapes. They do that all the time, and I just find it funny. But this is what they do. But I would probably give it like a 4 out of 5. I like Plo Koon. I think he's really good Jedi. I don't like all the Jedi. It's to say Luminara is a bitch. I can't stand her. He's a really good voice. He's a fantastic voice. Very calm. Not like me. He's very calm, and he talks very slowly. And but he's a really good character. And he's. I also like the fact that he doesn't dismiss Anakin the way, again, some of the Jedi do, and that's kind of why I like him. I mean, I like Anakin. So, is there anything else you want to add?
Padme is not completely useless. There's this giant TV trope of damsels in distress, and Padme throughout the TV series shows that she's not useless. Even though she is captured, she's constantly fighting them off and constantly putting them into situations. And there's a point where Annie and Obi-Wan are flying away, and she's the one mounting the gun. She's the one shooting them. So it's not like the classic stereotype of, oh, I have to be rescued, I'm so useless.
She gets tracked into the ship. She has presence of mind to say, I'm gonna set the ship on auto-destruct, so hopefully it'll take out somebody as we go, and then we'll escape. She almost got Grievous. But she does her job. I mean, she's able to keep out of their way for the most part. So it's not like she doesn't need help. But at the same time, she is useful. She doesn't just sit there. And that's good to see. It's nice. As I said, she has a sweet ass. What can I tell you? 4.
3 Grievous escape attempts out of 5.
3? Why 3, not 5 or 4?
Well, the second episode was rushed, and they didn't need to put that in, so it could have been a 2-part episode, but instead they made it 3 episodes. They stretched it. Yeah, well, they did stretch it. It becomes a mainstay of the story that he's like his nemesis. Like Grievous later on will tear the sky apart to get to Obi-Wan more than anybody else, because he wants to kill Obi-Wan like nobody, and that's why Obi-Wan kills him eventually in the movie, because it's a continuation of the fact that they have this history,
and they've got to resolve it through, force of arms. And this is basically what happens. All right, well, that's good. You give it a 3, I give it a 4, so that's pretty good. And as I said, we're gonna try to put up. We're gonna put up the whole series out, do the whole thing, and get it all done. That's the plan.